Who's who's talking first, by the way? Is it going to be Patty and then Terry?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's Amanda for the rest of the time.
Thanks everybody for coming on. If you want to join us while you wait, in the chat box down at the bottom, go ahead and put in who you are, where you're from, as we get started in just a couple minutes here.
I see Joe Bailey has joined us.
My friend Smitty from grade 7 through all of undergrad just joined in from Antigonish, Nova Scotia. So I got to give a special shout out.
How exciting.
Yeah. Amazing PE teacher back home, and an amazing friend. And my friend Shannon in Colorado, who we work together. We talk probably 3 times a day right now. Clem Plogger from St. Louis. It's her leadership, and with all amazing teachers in her district, we've actually worked on this topic a lot this summer. She's probably sick of me. Someone must have paid her to join. And then my friend's brother, who teaches in California, Adam, he joined in, which is really cool. I haven't met him in person yet, but hopefully I will get to do that at some point. And of course, Joe is, everybody admires and looks up to Joe, and Sue Tar's voice in the adapted world is so critical.
Okay, Patty, we're good to go.
Okay, welcome everyone to Cape Breton Corps Zoom presentations. My name is Patty Supay, and I'm honored to be this year's Cape Breton president. I hope that you are enjoying these valuable presentations hosted by Cape Breton. This is our 8th so far. We had no idea we would ever get this far, and we are so excited that it is turning out so well, and that we are providing great resources for you. We are pleased that we've been able to pull these together with great presenters to offer teachers what they need during these uncertain times. We're going to continue to offer these presentations to you as long as it's needed. We have several more sessions so far planned. Our next presentation after tonight will be Tuesday at 5 o'clock, Design Considerations for Distance Learning with David Dom. This webinar will go over verifying student learning, providing feedback, filtering videos from the internet, and developing your own instructional videos. So keep up through the Cape Breton emails and social media, as well as the Cape Breton website, for announcements of all future presentations. As we plan for the next couple of months, we are looking for your feedback. Please let us know what you need more of, what you've found valuable, and what will make you the best teacher that you can be. So tonight, we are hosting Amanda Stanek. Dr. Stanek has proudly served the physical education profession for over 2 decades. During this time, she's taught elementary and middle school PE and higher education. Since 2011, Dr. Stanek has been the leader of Move, Live, Learn, which provides services such as youth development programs, HPE, K-12 standards-based curriculum, writing, coaching, monitoring, evaluation, and research. Some further achievements that I found out about her include the publication of more than 20 articles, as well as co-authoring several chapters related to physical education, sport, health, and wellness topics. She has served on the board of directors for physical and health education in Canada and is well respected for her contributions as the lead writer for provincial-wide physical education curriculum, university kinesiology and teacher education courses, and youth sports leadership and positive youth development programs. Most recently, Amanda has led projects on behalf of the International Olympic Committee, the Association of Summer Olympics, International Federations, Jackie Joyner, Kersey Foundation, the United World Wrestling, NFL, Place 60, Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and PHE Canada. Quite a lot to say. She is a native of Nova Scotia, Canada, but Amanda lives in St. Louis presently, where she is helping to raise her 3 daughters. Before we turn this over to Amanda for this great presentation, I would like to invite Shape America President-elect Terry Drain to say a few words.
Thank you, Patty. And thank you all for being here and your commitment to your professional practice and to providing your students the best quality instruction possible. Thank you also to CAFED for putting on these webinars and for all the presenters that make it possible. I had the privilege of presenting the first webinar. It was called Unleash the Power of Your Why. And in that webinar, I talked about how we're at a crossroads for the profession and how we're all going to advocate like we've never had before to make sure physical education stays within the school curriculum, both now during COVID and after. In the webinar, I talked about your job as teachers in the field, which is to provide quality physical education and to make sure everybody knows the purpose of physical education and why it's important. There's another important job you have as well, and that's to belong to your professional organization. We need to advocate from the bottom up and the top down. And our state and national organizations advocate for the profession in a way that no one else can. And we need your support. The more members we have, the more powerful we are, the more resources we have to be the voice of physical educators at the state and the national level. So if you're not a member yet, please sign up and encourage your colleagues to be the same. It's just like you belong to your state or National Teachers Association, where the goal is 100% participation, not 10%, but 100%. So join now so these organizations have the resources and the power to be a powerful voice for physical education. I'd like to wish you all the best for your school year. I hope to see you all soon in person. And now it's my pleasure to pass it over to Amanda.
Thanks, Terry. This is my AirPod fell out. Hi, everybody. Good evening. And thank you for joining me. And thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get this party started. All right. Could I have a thumbs up from the panelists if you're able to see the slide deck right now? Awesome. Thank you so much. So at first, I just want to start off by thanking CAFED for hosting this webinar. I really was inspired by other people who were always contributing to the profession online by sharing their hours and hours of work that they develop. And I've been working on a lot of curriculum development this summer, and I have been accessing resources that other people have shared, and really felt like, since I haven't been blogging as much the last couple of years, I felt like I should be doing more. So when I threw out there that I was going to do this webinar, I got an email from CAFED and they offered to host it. And so that took away, I didn't have to worry about purchasing a big Zoom account or trying to figure out how to get this many people onto something that I already had, and I could focus on the content. And so I just want to thank these amazing volunteers in California. I wish I was in California right now for leading that charge. So thank you so much. And I actually want to give specific shout out to the people here, because they're the people who I was going back and forth with or are here tonight. Terry, you're not there. I'm awful. Shape president, nothing like leaving the Shape president off. The other thing I'd like to say is I want to thank a couple friends, colleagues for taking time. These are the type of people that I really appreciate and I'm inspired by in terms of sharing. And so when I was creating a draft for this evening, they were kind enough to provide feedback on that. So Shannon, Sarah, and Becky, and those are their Twitter handles. I just want to thank you for your time and for your friendship and for just the ongoing collaboration that we're lucky enough to participate in together. So I just want to set the record straight here. I am not an expert really in anything, but particularly in teaching health PE or social emotional learning skills during a pandemic. I think anyone who thinks or tries to tell you that they're an expert in what to teach and how to teach right now, they're a liar. Like this is nothing any of us were prepared to do in our teacher education programs. And there's not research out there that we can synthesize and translate into our everyday practice for us to draw upon. So a lot of the work that you'll see, like it's just, I was lucky enough to think about this a lot this summer before a lot of the districts realized like it's 100% virtual. So everything I share in the spirit that you'll question it and think of ways to improve on the ideas presented. After this webinar, you'll receive a link. I also tweeted it out this evening. It's a working document. Right on the cover, it's a working draft, and it is a summary of everything that I'm going to cover this evening. And that is so you don't have to sit and take notes or worry about any of that. You'll receive a draft of the slides in case you want to take it and present it to people you teach with. And you'll also receive the resource in case you want to work with your curriculum instruction folks or work with your teaching partners so that you can go through and use it as a guide. And we will get you those links after. And it will stay a working draft because I'm hoping once you make it better, you'll send me an email and tell me where I went wrong and we can build on it together so that while none of us may be experts in it, when everyone has a voice, we'll get a better product. So that's the goal. So just using the chat function, if you could tell me why you registered for this webinar, that would be fantastic. I'm not looking at a show or Netflix or anything. I'm looking at another screen here. So I'm just gonna read these as they come in. What prompted you to do this? See where there's commonality among professionals looking for something new. Just need some support with the curriculum because I'm not an expert in the pandemic either. Need all the help I can get, be the best teacher I can be. Kids on Zoom all day, what a nightmare. We want them moving. Juliana, I'm with you, girl. I'm a new PE teacher and I need all the help I can get. You also might have fresh ideas that can help people who, like me, who've been in the profession for 20 some years. So that's great. I can only provide my kids so I can provide them with the best possible program. Title says it all. Okay, the sheer uncertainty of how to make this sustainable. Looking for ideas, been doing independent study. Everything is so overwhelming. Sometimes it's hard to know where to start. Okay, so the person who wrote that one, GI8389FT is the name that I'm reading. That's why I wanted to do this, because I felt like it is so overwhelming. It's like, where do I begin? It's kind of like when you're moving and the moving truck unloads everything and you're just kind of like, all right, which box do I start with? And it's that sense sometimes you just kind of freeze. I tend to just then go for a run and then come back and open a box. That's why I wanted to do this, is just to give you a starting point, and then you can modify it, refine it, improve upon it, and use it. Educational, Joe wants to provide the best educational experience for her students, given the constraints. Yeah, walking into the school year blind to begin under COVID constriction, leaving school in March, I was able to build what I already taught my students to get new students. Feel it could be hard to build those new relationships. So that's my friend Smitty, is Brian in the chat. What I want you, Smitty, there was another webinar by Kate Cox that talked a lot about how to build community using virtual activities. And so when they mentioned at the beginning of tonight, there's 8 webinars, I really encourage you to go to CAFERD, California AFERD's website, and download those webinars, or you don't even have to download, just watch them, because there's a lot of great stuff on that. So, okay. So I'm going to get started here. I think I know remote till January and want to plan. First day tomorrow, learning always. Hi, Lisa. It's nice to hear from you. And Kim's fully virtual. They just found out they're teaching virtually once a week, want to have meaningful instruction, but also limit kids' screen time. Best practice for teaching. So this is awesome. So thank you all for registering, and I really hope it's worth your while. I'll welcome all feedback, positive and corrective throughout and post. Here are the objectives that I came up with. I want you to understand how identifying key priority areas can help you establish a roadmap in your planning. I want you to feel empowered to modify your yearly plan based on the current reality. So we're teaching during a pandemic and we're teaching virtually, and so it's different, right? And so what our highest priorities are, they might be different than what our highest priorities were last year. It doesn't mean that everything we do is not important. It just means that some things might be more important or most important right now. So I also want you to understand how to apply backward design to develop units that logically group shape American national standards, national health education standards, and the social emotional learning core competencies. So for my friends back home in the True North Strong and Free, this does share examples with the national standards, because there's no way I could provide examples then for each province and territory of Canada as well. But you will see the language is so similar. So a standard is also, a general curricular outcome. So I can go back and forth as needed based on that. And really, I want you to feel excited about the school year. I really, really do. It's a big wish, right? But I feel like I want you to leave here feeling like, okay, I can teach meaningful instruction and I can help empower kids through these really challenging times. So why am I the one to do this? That's a great question. I'm probably not the one that should be doing this, and I mean that in all sincerity. But I did get to spend my summer working on plans and working with teachers to support teachers in the local district in the St. Louis area. I want to thank Ladue Public Schools and their incredible physical education teachers. I was with them for 3 full days in July, and we just they asked every question. But the coolest part was how willing they were to roll up their sleeves and how positive they were. It was absolutely inspiring. And the week of preparation I made to deliver what we thought at the beginning was going to be this hybrid model got thrown out the window, because then I was preparing them for virtual, but then they didn't know. So we just had we just kept stopping, reflecting, and doing better each day. And the teachers, they brought their A game. So thank you. And then tomorrow I'm going to share this webinar with the teachers to help in another school district that's local. So I wanted to thank those school districts for giving me the opportunity to hunker down this summer and really try to figure this out. And I'm really inspired, as I mentioned earlier, about others who are always sharing their ideas and resources online, like Joe Bailey's on here, and just so many people that continuously, you look at Joey Fife and the physicaleducator.com, Nathan Horn, iPhys Ed, you go to their websites, their resources are fantastic. And so they do all this just to share. So I wanted to kind of do my part and just to try to something useful for those of we just finding ourselves in this really odd situation. Why do you think our profession is well situated for these times? If you could please use the chat function again. I think that our profession is the best situated. You're like, PE online, how are we best situated? With PE and health online, I think we are the best situated to help kids during virtual learning. So why do you think we could be well situated for that? I'm waiting for the chats to come up. Hi, Connie. Connie Jander is one of these Ladue teachers as well. People are realizing how very important it is for kids to move and learn and live too, right, Connie? My name is like, seems very, I chose it 11 years ago, but it seems pretty appropriate for their times. This gives us an opportunity to really shine where the family can actually see what we do. 100% agree with you. Our profession can be used to give kids mental and physical breaks because we're used to connect with kids. Students look forward to seeing us. We have an opportunity to really zero in on student personal interest. Absolutely, Brian, and that's what I'm really recommending this evening. We have relationships with the whole school population and kids trust us. Our kids really need to move to be healthy. We are resilient. I love that, Casey. We're fun. I love that. Mental health is so more important now than ever. We can build on what we already teach. Lisa shares, since COVID closure, many people have shared their adaptations to fitness at home on social media. We have a good relationship with our students. Awesome. It requires us to think outside the box and focus on the knowledge of our curriculum. I totally agree, Ada. Health PE is life. Oh, we got Ontario, Nikki from Ontario, Canada. Think of our students need to move. We also have an opportunity to develop mental health literacy. Absolutely. So I absolutely think that we are well situated because of all of the reasons that you share. So I don't need to continue to repeat them. The rapport, because we get to teach them multiple years, is huge. We know them. So while we're building community at the beginning of the year, for most students, we've taught them before and we know them. So we can build from that. Also, raise your hand if physical activity helped you navigate life the last 5 weeks and made you feel better on days where it seemed really cloudy. You can raise your hand in the chat. Yeah, thank you. So I feel like we know this, and we need to help students understand it at a level that they choose to do it. Okay, that's where the personal interest comes in, and that's how we're going to kind of zone in to help them feel that. My biggest thing is the end of the first quarter, at the end of the first 9 weeks, students can set goals related to physical activity, and they can see and they have experienced a connection of how working toward those goals helps them to feel better, happier, more empowered, less sad, confident, even jazzed. So this is what I'm hoping happens. Before we get into planning for these first 9 weeks, and also if you have any questions, we're going to do a Q&A at the end. Forgot to say it at the beginning. Before we get into the backward design 3-step process that I'm encouraging you to consider for your planning for this year, I just want to go over, and there's other webinars on this, and this again is not my area of expertise, but I just wanted to share some of the things that I think about as a mom of children, elementary age kids who were online in the spring, as someone who has taught a lot of graduate classes online over time. Just a couple things. Be yourself, some do's. Keep your talk time minimal, what you're not required to do in a webinar, but what you do want to do for PE lesson. Be available to give feedback. So I think this, if you have a PE lesson, the structure wise, what I recommend, who am I? No one to really make this recommendation, but if you have a 40-minute class, short instruction time at the beginning, right? Synchronously, and then go out and practice. Leave the Zoom, practice asynchronously, but the teacher be available to give feedback to the students during that time. And if there's enough time at the lesson, a lot of times in secondary, it's block schedule, bring them back in for a nice formal closure. But if it's 30-minute classes, just make the connection and build on it in the next day in the introduction. So keep them off the screen as much as possible. Of course, you'll have to teach safety, and we'll get into that a little bit, how's this going to look in the transitions, what's safe, what's not safe. But these are some of the things that I really recommend. Multimedia approach, share an article, share a short video. If you are virtual every day, try to mix it up. Provide some type of platform for students to see and hear each other, I think Flipgrid is a great option. And I believe there was a whole session from Stephanie on Flipgrid through this series. So as I said, I don't need to get into any of this. It's all going to be out there. And then have like a nice routine for a lesson. I like Hellison's model of personal social responsibility. It's what I do a lot of programming in. You see the Jackie Joyner-Kersee youth development covers on my wall here, and we use that. And we have an opening like a coach's corner, which is a play on TSN. I guess, I don't know if that's still around now, but it was cool at the time. Some learning activities. And then it's like, this is a bit of a high modified Hellison model, but then this reflection and transfer. So making sure at the end, the kids are understanding what they learned and how to transfer it out into all areas of their life, or at least other areas of their life. And if at the end of a day, kids can't tell you how to transfer what they learned in your health and PE class, then you're probably going to want to mix it up or try something else. And then this idea of a highlight reel. This may not be each lesson. This might be more the last week of lessons. This might be something that happens once a week, but celebrating the successes as children are working toward their goals. Just don't make kids sit in front of a screen during their entire PE lesson. Some of you might say my district's making me do that. I can't do anything about that, but I wouldn't recommend it. It just seems so backwards to me. Don't forget to be creative, and don't forget to be yourself. So, you know, my kid's PE teacher, he's a riot. So we met last week and we were going over a lot of this, and I was talking about goal setting. He's like, you know what I do when I teach goal setting? I set up a goal. And then the kids are like, no, Coach Button, like, you don't really set up a goal when you learn goal setting. And I was cracking up, and I'm like, set up a goal on the screen, like be yourself. That's what they remember and they enjoy and love about you. Don't remove all opportunity for students to interact with you. So if you could be present to observe them and offer them skill-specific feedback, that is wonderful. And don't just be sending worksheets and activity logs without connecting it to learning. And parents are, there's so much, you know, we're all working, we're all trying to support our kids and their learning, and it is a lot. So if there is a worksheet or a bingo sheet or an activity thing, make sure it's really, really connected to the learning. So it doesn't just become one other thing that has to get done. Okay, I just wanted to spend a second on that. So we're going to go through, no matter where you are, no matter what curriculum you're teaching from, we're going to use a backward design. So I just like taking it with these 3 steps. So the first thing we're going to do is determine the desired results. What are the big ideas and the skills we want students to learn during the first quarter, let's say. So when I say first quarter, I'm talking about the first 9 weeks. So what are your desired results? So a little more specifically, we're going to zone in and determine, like, what standards are we focusing on in physical education, health education, and social emotional learning during this first 9 weeks. Then we're going to move on and we're going to talk about how do we determine that they've demonstrated an understanding of what it is we want them to understand. So we're going to talk about benchmark assessments and developing some type of assignment and a rubric that helps students show us that they've met the benchmark assessment. So we need a way to know that students understand what it is we've deemed to be the big priority. And then we get into planning the lessons, the learning experiences, and the instruction. So to get going a little deeper, we'll start here with determine desired results, identifying the big ideas and the skills. This is step 1, backward design, teaching health, PE, and SEL during a global pandemic. What can we do other than giggle at this point? So what is the first question is, what's the standard that you want students to achieve? So what shape national standard are we really focusing on? And what does that standard look like? What do we want them to achieve? And what national health education national standards do we want them to demonstrate an understanding in? And what SEL core competencies? And what is the grade level standards you want them to achieve? So once we identify the national standards, we'll go through them. We're going to look a little more at grade level. One big recommendation that I'm going to hold up this pen here to illustrate it, because I'm a very visual learner and I'm trying to make sure you're still awake. is if this is K and this is 12, I say choose the same standards. Like, this is different times. It's unique times. We're going to take a unique approach. And I think if you have the same standards, K to 12, that you're focused on, think of the positive influence you can have on families. And I hope that becomes a little more clear when I share with you the ones that I chose in the example. So I want you, as I go through some of these national standards, and I put them in here so you don't have to go Googling and looking and bringing them up, although a lot of you know them off by heart. But I want you to take notes just on whatever you have in front of you, or take up the sticky note app on your computer. What is the highest priority area for the standards you're about to view? And I would love, I invite you to use the chat function in this webinar to share what you come up with. So if I was going to chat, I would write shape, and then I would put the standard number. I'd put health, and I'd put the standard number, SEL, and I'd put the core competency. Okay. So as I show you the national standards in physical education, health education, and social emotional learning, I want you to pick out what you think is the highest priority to teach in the first quarter of virtual learning during the COVID pandemic. So it's not a typical year, right? So normally what's most important in the first quarter is, it might be very different, but we want to be really intentional and purposeful and current and relevant to help kids and families navigate these challenging times. And they are challenging. They're very challenging, and it's okay for us to say that. So we're going to flip our curriculum a little bit, and maybe something we typically teach in January, maybe that needs to be taught in October, right? Like maybe we always taught goal setting later in the year. I wonder which one I feel very strongly about right now. And maybe we need to really put it up early. Okay. And that's okay. And maybe we normally only teach goal setting twice in elementary, once in middle school, and once in high school, because we have vertical alignment and we do it in age and developmentally appropriate ways, but we don't do it each grade level. It's okay to say it makes sense to revisit the skill of goal setting in the health curriculum with PE during the first month of teaching virtual, because every student in America would benefit right now from understanding how to set a goal in physical activity to help them navigate living during the pandemic and navigate how to feel well during, virtual learning. So I hope that's clear. Like typically when I helped a district in Connecticut come up with a skill-based K-12 curriculum, we certainly weren't doing goal setting each year. We were revisiting it in age and developmentally appropriate ways, but we weren't doing it every year. But what I'm saying now is like, I would do it every grade level at the start of this year. So as you're looking at the Shape America standards, which standard do you think is most important to teach, hone in on, focus on for the first quarter of teaching virtually during a pandemic? Standard 5, Joe Bailey, gold star. Maureen, standard 5, gold star for you too. I probably give everybody a gold star because I'm sure you have really good rationale. So keep them coming. I'm really curious. Like, what do you think is the most important standard to zero in on right now? Standard 5 from Sue. So we got 3 for 3. This sounds like maybe this isn't very controversial. Maybe I'll get invited back to do another webinar. Okay, what else? Standards 4 and 5. I like that, Jess. Personal, so standard 4, responsible personal social behavior, respects self and others. It's really hard to put any of these in isolation, eh? Like it's just, I love these standards. They're great. Standards 3 and 4 from Cassandra. So demonstrates knowledge and skills to achieve and maintain a health enhancing level of physical activity and fitness. Agree. Standard 4 and 5, 3 and 5. I think, so isn't this funny, right? So standards 1 and 2 are our typical vehicle that we teach and we weave everything else in. And now we're setting back and saying, well, yeah, that's why we're the best situated, because we teach all of these really important lessons that help kids to use the physical skills and concepts and knowledge that they're acquiring with standards 1 and 2. So thank you so much. I'm excited because I think there's, you know, I chose one standard. You can definitely choose more than one standard. And there's argument that standard 3 might be better than, or not better, but might be the highest priority for you and your colleagues for whatever reason, more than standard 4 or more than standard 5. So you can debate that. So let's look at the national health standard. So of course, standards 2 through 8 are skills, right? So when we talk about skills in health and PE, we typically are talking about physical skills in the early years, then skill combinations as grades 2, 3, 4, and then we're taking skill combination and putting them in more complex situations as students get older. So we're looking at skills and then how we use concepts and knowledge to apply our skills. So typically in physical education, skills are physical, the movement. Everyone move if you want. If I can't see you, but I'd love it if you're out moving. And then in health, the skills are things that we say are really important, but they're not just magically learned, like goal setting, decision making, analyzing influences. I love the health standards. Standards 2 through 8 are skills. And because the reason why we have skills-based health national standards is because knowledge alone doesn't change behavior. Like, people know drinking and driving is bad, but some people still drink and drive, right? So knowledge alone does not change behavior, but skills can change behavior. So if we know how to set goals, we can set goals in our physical domain. We might set goals in our academic lives. We might set goals in, how we behave as members of our family. If we make decisions, we can apply. Look at the different places we have to make decisions. As a family member, as a community member, are we going to volunteer? What are the decisions we make as a coach? How do we handle ourselves with the students and the athletes in the community that we coach? There's, so many different decision-making skills. And what's a decision-making skill for my 3-year-old when I'm making sure she has, puts on her helmet before she hops on her scooter might look different than a decision that my niece, who just got her learners last week back in Nova Scotia, like the decisions that she's now facing as a 16-year-old are much different than my 3-year-old daughter, but the skill is still important. So at this time, I'm going to just make a little plug here for Holly and Sarah's 2 skills-based health resources, lesson planning for skills-based elementary and lesson planning for skills-based secondary, because there's amazing examples of how to teach these skills in age and developmentally appropriate ways. So that's a little aside. I get no money for sponsoring their work. I just am a fan of their work and their resources. So as you look at health, what do you think is most important skill to be teaching virtually during a global pandemic? What skills would you focus on? Allison, I will do that while everyone writes. I'm going to write the name of those books. And I'm just going to write their last names and know that there's a secondary one, and then there's a elementary one. Meeting secondary, national standards, their authors order changes in this one. And I know that because I reference their work so much. Okay. All of them, Joe said. First quarter, standard 6 and 4. Demonstrate, okay, goal setting and then communication. So Sue and I are we're like this tonight, Sue and I. So Cassandra says 7 and 8, demonstrate ability to practice and the demonstrate ability to advocate for personal, family, community health. Oh, those are important. 5 and 7, demonstrate the ability to use decision-making and then practice health. 6 and 7. So the one thing about 7 is I guess that's not so much a skill as it is the behavior. So yeah, it's very, very important. So Self-regulation. Okay, so that's going to come up more in the social emotional learning. So if you haven't done this, like what's going to happen, what I'm suggesting is for this first step 1 of identifying key areas, you're just going to do exactly this. You're going to look at the national standards for PE, you're going to look at the national standards for health, and you're going to have rationale as to why you think the ones you've identified are most important. Okay, so then you do the same thing with social emotional learning. Now, at a time where, unfortunately, in some districts, PE is being cut right now, this is something that I really strongly urge you to use as a hook to help people recognize the importance of health and physical education. You must make time to share at the district level that in your program, your health standards, they align with social emotional learning core competencies. In relationships, you have conflict resolution, communication, all of that are subset of relationship skills and social emotional learning. You have responsible decision making. That is a standard, a national standard in the health curriculum. You have, self-management. That's emotional regulation. That's self-awareness, recognizing our strengths, our areas for growth. These are all the things that we that are so vital right now for kids. But so much of this marries beautifully with the health national standards. It's really important that district people know that, because you might have heard my kids upstairs. Is that why you smile, Francis? Sorry. Hey, hashtag real life. Okay. So as I wanted you in the slides to be able to reference these. And so I just define these a little bit more for you. So as you're thinking about what's most important, use the chat function if you don't mind to share with me which ones, as I'm sharing now, do you think are vital during the first quarter? So they're all important. None of us are questioning the importance of all the national standards, but we have to pick what can set our students up. What can we have the greatest impact? Oh my gosh, I need to talk faster because of time. Okay, relationship skills. Okay, so self-management, regulate one's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. Then we have self-awareness, recognize one's own emotions and thoughts and how these influence behaviors. So if you're about to have a meltdown, like, is that gonna set me up for success, or is that gonna hinder me in pursuit of my goal? Social awareness, take the perspectives of others and empathize with others. We need to give these kids grace right now. Hopefully we'll receive it from families as well. So that is critical. Relationship skills, ability to establish and maintain. Again, a lot of these are health standards. Okay. So I'm seeing self-awareness and self-management. I agree. Relationship skills, we're all on the same page. So it's not really controversial. It's just a matter of stopping and stepping back and just putting everything we've done and almost going through our yearly plan and highlighting, like, what is the first thing that is going to help kids be successful, not just health and PE, but help them be successful just in life, so they're happy. That's a big concern of mine. So when I did this is what I came up with. Just remember, the highest priority area doesn't mean it's the only thing important that we teach. Highest priority area is what is the most important while teaching virtually during a pandemic. I chose standard 5 because, quite frankly, the past 5 months, I'm just so grateful for fresh air and being able to run. And that's why I chose 5, because that has been the highlight of my time with my family or myself during the past 5 months. I want kids to make sure they get that, like during tough times, like not being able to go home this summer, having to deal with those things. Movement is there. Like the workout is always there. The yoga mat is always in the basement with my bright colored cords. Health standards, I chose decision-making, communication skills, and goal-setting skills. And then for social emotional learning, I chose self-management, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. So now that we do that, we have to determine acceptable evidence. Okay, so what is it that we want kids to be able to do or know or understand that makes us feel like, yeah, they get this. They get what I set out to teach them. So step 2 is creating benchmark assessments. So at the end of 9 weeks, what are you hoping they can demonstrate? And then you have to design assignments that enable the students to demonstrate their understanding. Just a couple tips with that. make sure you design the rubric when you design the assignment, and make sure the day you give the assignment, you also share the rubric so that students know what proficient competency looks like in what you want. We could have a whole other webinar in designing these assignments and rubrics if you want. I don't know when I'm going to plan for that, but I'm just going to throw that out there because I don't mean to skip through it because it's not something that doesn't require thought, but just because of time, I have to keep going. I did provide example benchmark assessments for you. They're going to be in the working document and they're also in this slideshow. So, I clustered K2, health and SEL. I didn't break them out by grade level, but for K to 2, I did. And then the grade level targets are in parentheses and they're italicized. Okay, so this is what we would then take this benchmark assessment and say, okay, I want them to demonstrate an understanding of how decision-making can be applied to increase health and how poor decision-making skills can hinder health. So maybe I want them to draw me a picture of what a safe bike rider might look like, throwing that out there. So after I teach them like the helmet and safety things, or maybe I have them talk using Flipgrid and sharing what that might look like or things they need to think about while they're applying the steps to the decision-making process. So I go through in these slides and give you some additional examples. And then I'm just rolling right along. So you have those examples, benchmark assessments, you make assignments, like create them and have a rubric attached. Good. Okay, you're awesome. In case no one told you today. Then 3, it looks like people want another rubric. That's scary. Okay, plan learning experiences and instruction. So that's when we get to the lesson plan and designing the units. And so what I did here for step 3, the standards and the benchmark assessments, they're going to inform the learning experiences and instruction. Here are summaries and overview of a 9-week plan based on the examples I gave you in this. So you can make this like 100 times better. I actually feel quite vulnerable sharing it because, as I said, who am I to even suggest? So the first week, like message home, communication and safety. The theme, build community and safety. Talk about physical activity and be able to communicate experiences around the joys, the challenges, the interests. Be sure to discuss safety considerations for being active during PE time when it's asynchronous. And districts are encouraged to provide any verbiage around this for teachers related to safety to make sure teachers are protected when they let the students out of the Zoom. Standard 4, interpersonal communication skills to enhance health and avoid reduce. And then, of course, SEL relationship skill, communicating virtually in breakout rooms. And then I provide a rationale as to the thinking behind it. It's important for community to be established so students feel welcomed. And I don't need to read all this to you. So feel free to read along. I want to give a time for discussion. I have this for week 3, 4. And when I designed this back to 1, 2, I kind of assumed that people saw their students 2 to 3 times a week. That's not the case everywhere. So you'll have to take these 9 weeks, this outline, and maybe you can only do the first half that's recommended. Maybe you can do more if you see them daily for a block. Like, it's just going to depend on the context of which you teach. Here's week 3, 4. So I kind of did it in 2-week blocks within the 9 weeks. So 3, 4 is goal setting and how it can positively enhance health. That's the message home. Let the parents know. Ideally, you get a piece of the weekly message to share what you're doing so that they understand how important you are right now. It's so easy for some uninformed people who had bad experiences in PE to just take it off a schedule, to say we can't teach PE right now because it's virtual. So take advantage of this opportunity to not like to be vulnerable like I'm doing right now, and share with your kids' school community, your student school community, a week with parents. Like, we're working on goal setting PE. Talk to them about it outside of the school day. Talk to them about how their physical education goal is going. Talk to them how they could apply the skill of goal setting to other areas of their life. Encourage the parents to set a goal with their kids so that they can hold each other accountable and inspire each other. 5, 6, effective decision-making and self-management are health-enhancing skills. I go on, there's all kinds of things in here. Week 7, 8, self-awareness, identifying strengths and areas for improvements. We want to finish strong. So where are we falling short here? We're getting close to the end of the quarter. We got to kind of to reignite the purpose toward the goal that they set. And then how can our emotions sometimes get in the way of striving and thriving? And then a highlight reel that last week, as much as we can, to share successes, to inspire each other, and kind of have a celebration of, it's kind of like the championship, invite parents to inform you of how the learning was transferred, invite the students to share ways that the learning was transferred. Okay, I think there's 11 minutes. I'm happy to stay as long as you need, but I had to get through that. So step 1, key area. Step 2, determine evidence that you are satisfied with to ensure that students understand these really highest priority areas and content. And then step 3, that's when you're really zeroing in. Okay, on this day, this is my 3 minutes of talking. This is what I'm going to share, or this is what I'm going to ask them to respond to using Flipgrid. That's when you get creative in that way. But the majority of the time, I really recommend that you let them loose from Zoom and you let them go out and work on whatever it is that is accessible to them, of interest to them, and like actually possible with them. So I see there's 5 questions. Ooh. Is it better to show a video instead of leading the exercise? So I'm hoping that people don't lead exercises on Zoom all class. I would love to see kids, I understand maybe if you're doing a jump rope unit, you might show and demonstrate a couple skills at the beginning, but I just would want them to disconnect from Wi-Fi and connect with nature and be outdoors as much as possible. I understand in some districts they're not allowing that, but I would request that most certainly. So not necessarily better to show a video. Maybe you have some examples of videos. Once you know what goals certain students are working on, you could share resources with them and so forth. Or if they happen to have a goal in an area that's one of your area of expertise, for sure, show them. You could record yoga, but some people say use a video. I think that would just personal choice for you for sure. Best microphone. Okay, technology questions, not my area. Like this isn't really my area, pandemic teaching, but definitely, I'm sorry, if somebody else could share what they think maybe a best microphone would be, we could help. That would be great. Mandy asked, will we be able to view this presentation again once it's over? I don't know, but you will receive, somebody will know, one of the amazing CAFER panelists will know. You'll have access to the slide deck, and you're also, I'm going to share a different screen.
So Amanda, yes, it is up on YouTube, right? Like we're live streaming to YouTube. So this presentation will be on YouTube, on the CAPERD website, on the CAPERD channel.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm now going to share my screen again. And I'm going to, so you should be able to see a working document. It says working draft. Could I see a thumbs up from my friends at CAFERD? Okay, awesome. Thanks, Francis. So here is a summary. Here's the table of contents. Here is a summary of what I went over this evening that you can access post presentation. You can actually access it now because I tweeted it out earlier. Listen, folks, like the purpose of this is to make it better. Okay, so you can use this. There's a little letter. There's just an overview on here. Some of the images you'll have seen before, and it takes you through the 3 steps. And then I show out this 9-week template. I was going to scroll to at some, so this 9-week, you can go in then and modify this template based on the context that you teach. And Jess just sent the document in the chat. Thank you, Jess. Now, I thought there was going to be a lot of questions and discussion, so maybe I didn't need to rush through the other part as much as I did. If you have any questions or comments, please use the chat. or feedback or ideas to make it better, all of that is welcome. Oh, now I'm getting access. People are requesting access. So if you can't click in right away, I'll make sure I change the settings. Oh, yeah, the watch is really buzzing here. Brian, Sheila, let me see. Hi, Sheila. That was one of my undergrad students when I was a professor. Fabulous hockey player from Newfoundland. Let's see here. So I'm going to share. Anyone can view. It should be. I wonder why that's happening. Any questions or comments from the panelists?
No, this has been great.
It is.
I
Awesome.
think you hooked people with saying creating the benchmark assessment.
It's nice to have examples to work from, you know. I feel like the assignments, someone mentioned today, he felt like assignments were, assessment was going to be a high stress area. And I think assessment always is a bit of a high stress area because often, I mean, assessment practices they vary so much around the country, I find, and countries. Mm-hmm. So that is something that's different, you know, observation, peer assessment, some of these things might be able to do some with Flipgrid and things like this of standard 1, 2, but that's why I think coming up with a creative product for the end of that they're working on throughout the quarter, like goal setting, how am I demonstrating these skills and so forth, would be really beneficial. I lost the
So Amanda, the one thing I would add to that is that to keep in mind that whatever you personally find to be your standard priorities is going to be different based on, it can be different by class even. I know looking at my class makeup that one 5th grade class is going to be drastically different in their needs than the other 5th grade class, and that it doesn't have to be the same across the board. It should be student specific and community specific, and that because one person feels strongly about something doesn't mean you're wrong or they're wrong. It just means you know your students best and what's needed for them in particular.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jess. Great point. I love how people are having little mini reunions in the chat. Yes, you'll be able to get these slides. Maybe it's the slide thing that's not on the big, I'm glad you like them. Let's see here. Share. I'll be able to. Okay.
Amanda, you might want to also let people know that these resources will be available via the Caperd website.
So as Patty said, they'll be available on the Caperd website, and I'm typing that in right now.
And Amanda, I know I saw your other slide, the previous slide before this on Twitter. So I know you had put out something.
Yeah, I put out the working document, the resource. Yeah, so I probably should. Someone said it was vital that it appears as a draft because everything's changing so quickly, and that's a great point. It's from Nikki, I believe, and I think that's really important. And to Sue's question on how do you suggest general teachers intentionally work with students with disabilities, of course, that's always such a difficult question to answer because the variance in disabilities and then the variance in the severity of the disabilities is so great. So, you know, with goal setting, with physical disabilities, you know, a lot of what's here will continue to work. The piece that's going to be really critical with working with the students with disabilities is the teacher availability to be present and to support students and families during the asynchronous learning time, when the students are like, a lot of the students will be signing off to go and practice this skill, whether, you know, depending on the disability, depending on the severity of the disability, that might work still really well for a child with a disability. But for another child with a disability, there's going to need to be, you know, more support. And unfortunately, like everything for families with children with disabilities, it's probably going to, not probably, it will require more of an effort from the parents. I mean, kids with disabilities, they have to play more, pay more for sport because their equipment is a lot more expensive. Their parents have to drive further for sport because there's fewer options close to the home. And so it's just, it's this unfortunate thing. And it's so important that we as all parents advocate for children with disabilities in para-sport and adapted physical education. I don't know, like in some instances, if adapted teachers are going to be able to go and give social distance mask wearing driveway instruction. Probably not if it's all virtual. So though that question is one that I've been really thinking about, Sue. And I would invite you to share any ideas with your expertise. Of course, Sue's one of the leading adapted physical education professors in the country. Please share with us, and thank you for bringing that up again. You sent me that question in the form and I meant to address it. But I think the biggest thing is communicating with parents, looking at the IEP, how can that fit within here? And the reality is maybe the 9-week plan for the other students, if they're all together in a class, maybe it's a different 9-week plan for our students with disabilities. You know, I just think stepping back again and saying like, what's the most important for these students now, and working with parents and families and classroom teachers to come up with the plan. So the links are good. You're welcome for the backward design piece, Carolyn. Thank you for that feedback. Diane, I hope that was helpful at all. And please feel free to share ideas as an adapted PE teacher. My minor and my doctorate was in adapted. And so I really feel strongly that we need to do a good job. And my own kids get speech at school, and I was like reaching out to figure out, and it's one area it's hard to get feedback on, like what speech therapy in school is going to look like for the kids with virtual learning. I'm glad you find the specific examples helpful. I feel like it's just something to start, right? So like the boxes there, now maybe all the moving boxes are in each room. So there's just a little bit more like, and you need to unload the kitchen first, because who wants to pay for food when you want to cook it, so I think that just taking this, and please do make it better. Like that's the spirit of this, is just, here's an example. Here are the steps for backward design. Here's how I need to reimagine things to help my students, feel empowered and actually have some joy. Like nature, I kept saying at Ladue School District, nature, joy, safety, movement. Nature, joy, safety, movement. These are the things that keep swirling around in my little brain, because, that I want our students to really experience and feel. And you don't get that by following a PE teacher on the Zoom. Like, no matter how sweet and wonderful you all are, like, I just want to be outside. So, okay. So I'm going to invite my panelists to, did any of you want to say good night or goodbye, or I just would like us to give them a round of applause, because they're giving a lot of time to make this all happen. And I want to give the participants this evening, I'm very humbled with the number of you that showed up, to be honest. And thank you for being amazing. And I just wish you the very best. And I hope you know that I think you're the most important people in your school. And I say that not as somebody who's been in the PE profession for, 20 some years, but for someone whose kids come home and talk about why they said something to the kid on the bus because their PE teacher taught them to be an upstander, right? Like they want to come home and go for a run to prepare for something because their PE teacher told them that if they practice this, that on the day they have to do it because the state makes them, that they'll have a good experience with it. So it's not about a time, it's not about a zone, it's not about a stupid anything like that. It's about so that you can find joy when we do it in class. You want to practice it, or you want to be an upstander. So I say that as a parent, that you're the most important people in the school, and the things that you teach the kids, you're so helpful to us. So the more you can educate us in these areas is really important.
I do want to thank everyone for being here tonight. We appreciate that you're joining us on these presentations. We want to really thank Amanda. Great session. And we appreciate all that she's done as well to help us. Just remember that you can access this through the Capered website. You can access it through the YouTube Capered channel as well. And if you've got any feedback that you would like to let us know through the Capered website on what more you would like to see, maybe Amanda will do another one for us. Whatever you feel you need, just let us know, and we're going to try to do the best we can to give you the resources that will help you to be the best teachers you can be.
Smitty, big hugs to Nova Scotia. Love to you and your family, buddy. So thanks, everybody.